Hi, I'm Stephen Shane, the 3D Professor, and welcome to the 3D Professor's Lab. Today we're going to look at designing a simple key holder. Now, I don't know about you, but I'll come home every now and again, throw my keys sort of wherever. I don't really pay attention. I have a little key dish that I put my keys in. Sometimes they land there, sometimes they don't. I don't really have a place to put my keys when I walk in the door at night. So I'm going to use Fusion 360 to design a simple key holder that I can use to hang my keys up when I come in the door at night. So I can use it as not only a key holder, but I want to be able to use it as a hook as well. So if I have something that I want to hang there, I'm not stuck with just having it as a key holder. I also want to make it modular so I can pull the key holders out and put something else in. So let's move on to the design. You know, I'm always losing my keys or misplacing them. So I decided I was going to design a key holder that I can 3D print and put on my wall. I decided I would use Fusion, and here I'm going to go through the steps of creating this design of a very simple key holder that's flexible and allows me to replace the pieces that I have in the keys. So here I'm creating the base sketch. Once I have the base sketch created, I will add dimensions. Use an overall dimension here, and then I have one more dimension. And now we have our base sketch. We'll extrude that out. It's going to be 30 millimeters. A couple of fillets. Give it a little bit of a nicer look so it's not square and boxy. And here I'll create 4 rectangles that will be used to cut out holes in this design. And I want to make these, they're going to be 20 by 50, and I want to make the rest of them the same. So the easiest way to do that is just pick the edges and use equal as a constraint. That will make sure that they're all equal in dimension, and then I will place these where they need to be placed. Adding dimensions where I need to add the dimensions. I don't need to add dimensions everywhere. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to add a line that goes across that's 5 millimeters down from the top. The reason I'm adding this is because I'm going to add a little lip into these cutouts that will make it like a holder. So we'll select all those, make those 10 millimeters deep, and then I'll go back and I'll turn on the other sketch that we just created, and I'll make the holder sections. Those are going to join with, I'll make those 5 millimeters deep. Then we're going to take those and chamfer them 5 millimeters. That will give us this undercut, and the way those parts are going to be designed that are going to be the inserts, they're going to be able to shoehorn in and sort of hang from the top. Caught up. So we'll add fillets to these parts here just to give it a little bit of a nicer look. One of the things I need to add is a way to mount it. So I thought of a bunch of different ways, and what I decided was I was just going to create these keyways based on the bottom line. I'm just going to create these keyways that allow me to put a screw in going to use a center line and then mirror the parts around the center line and make that about 6.45. So adding dimensions for the diameter and now the height, or the distance and now the height. Once I have those, I can mirror these parts around that center line. Now I can dimension the center line to the edge. Once I extrude it, I'll make an array of that component or of that feature. Set that to 2. Chamfer those. That'll just make it a little easier when I put this on the wall and slide it over the screws. And that's it. I'm going to create a new component for the key holder itself. Now, again, this is going to be modular, so the key holder itself will be a smaller part that'll be printed separately. And you'll see later on how I print these using a program called Simplify 3D. Now I'm just going to project some of these edges, then I can use those edges as reference. Go ahead and draw my shape. And again, I'm not going to dimension this yet. The way I work is I just do things by eye. I add the dimensions afterwards. You can add the dimensions as you go, or you can add dimensions at a later time. I tend to create a simple sketch first and then add dimensions afterwards. I'll use constraints, dimensions, offsets, move things just as I need to. And set it up so that when I print this, so I'm doing a 0.3 millimeter offset from the edge. What this will allow me to do is when I am printing this, that 0.3 millimeters will give me enough of a gap so that this can fit nicely into the cutout for it. So I'll add a few dimensions. Right, I want to have just 5 millimeters there. And that gives me the shape I need. One thing that I will add, because I'm going to use this sketch twice, once for the bottom and once for the angled key holder. Now extrude that out 19.2 millimeters from the center. Again, I'll do the same thing with the key holder. It's going to make that 10 millimeters. And then I'll go ahead and add some fillets and just make it look a little cleaner. This will also help with fitting it in because I've filleted the original. And I'm going to use multiple fillets here because I like to use the setback. Visually, it's a little bit more appealing, and when it 3D prints slightly differently. So I'll go ahead and add some. That gives me the overall piece. Now I'll make the keyway. So what's going to happen is the key is going to slide into this. It's going to make it a little bit easier for me to just put a key in. It also acts as a hook. So the way I've designed this is not only is it a key holder, but it's also hooked, so I can put anything I want up there. And the way this has been designed is the keys fit nicely into the slot. So now I'll make the key slot and extrude that back and cut it. Let's go negative and cut that. And then I'll add a small chamfer on the edge, and it just makes it easier to get the key in. And that's the part. And that part will fit nicely into the slot that's in the base. Now I don't need to make 4 of the key holders because I only need 1. I'm going to 3D print 4 of them. And the nice thing about Fusion is I can go back and add these fillets that I missed at a later time. Now that I've saved it, I'm going to go over to the Tools menu, and I'm going to output this to an STL file. You can use the refinement options to increase or decrease the quality of the final model. So options like surface deviation and normal deviation affect curved surfaces, whereas maximum edge length and aspect ratio tend to affect linear surfaces. So aspect determines the aspect ratio of any polygon. The smaller the value, the shorter the polygon, the higher the value of maximum of 21.5 will give you a longer polygon. We'll save this, and then we'll export the hook, and we'll make this a little bit higher quality than it is now. I'll overwrite that file, and now we'll move on to 3D printing. Once the STL files are exported, we can use Simplify 3D to generate the G-code file we need for 3D printing. We'll import the base model, and we're going to be using my Folgertech FT5, which has a build area of 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. It's a relatively good 3D printer. It was one that I built myself from a kit from Folgertech. And I've made some modifications to it, so it prints really nicely. Here we'll go ahead and add a process. So Simplify 3D uses processes. So we'll add the process, set up our perimeters. So in this case, we're going to use 2 perimeters. And I'll go ahead and change the infill. We don't need as much infill in this. We'll use 15%. And I will add 1 more top layer. When you reduce the infill, there's a potential for the top layers to sort of sag in between when you use a low density infill. But the low density infill will help with print time and the amount of material, and having the additional top layers will help ensure that I have a nice smooth top surface. We'll go ahead and prepare that, and you'll see that this is the sliced version. I can scrub through the layers, and you've got 6 top layers, and then we go into the infill, and you can see it's fairly loose infill. 15% saves on material, and it also saves on time. We'll go ahead and export this as the keyholder based G-code file, and once that's exported, I can send it to the printer. So enjoy this time lapse of the printing. So we've finished the key holder, 3D printed it, and the next step is to finish it and put it up on the wall. Check back for another episode where we finish the key holder, hang it, and start using it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. For the 3D Professor's Lab, this is the 3D Professor. it's time to go home.